folks, it's Jeff here. Just a quick reminder, if you're loving Disney Coast to Coast, there are a couple of easy ways that you can support the show. We'd love it if you could rate and review us on iTunes, or wherever you listen to the show. This is a simple way to help other Disney fans find us. Also, go ahead and share your favorite episodes on social media and be sure to tag us. You can find all of our social media information at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. And finally, I just want to say thank you to all of you who listen every week. Your support is very appreciated, and we love that you're enjoying our Disney geekiness. Now on with the show.
Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and today on the show, I have an interview with guest Richard Kraft. Now, back on episode 563 of Disney Coast to Coast, I had my good friend Rick West join me to have a discussion about an exhibit we went to called That's from Disneyland. As we explained in that episode, this exhibit was part of a massive collection from Disney fan Richard Kraft. This free exhibit showing all of his impressive Disney collectibles, including ride vehicles, signage, and so much more, was a limited-time exhibition before Mr. Kraft auctioned off all of his items from Disneyland. While having that initial conversation with Rick on episode 563, we kept coming up with questions that we wanted to ask the collector himself. I'm pleased to report that Mr. Kraft was kind enough to invite me to his office, where I conducted the following interview, getting answers to the questions that Rick and I were wondering about. So now, let's jump to that interview with Richard Kraft. Richard, I know you're extremely busy, so thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know you've just had a long day of work as well, so thank you very much.
Sure thing.
I wanted to have you on because I did an episode of the show all about your exhibit, That's from Disneyland, and I kept asking questions that you can answer, so I figured I'd try and have you on. So thanks so much for coming on. But I guess just start at the beginning. Where did this all start for you? Not just the collecting, but like the obsession with Disney.
The first movie I ever saw was Mary Poppins when it came out. I think I was 4 or 5. Completely blew my mind away. Around the same time was my first trip to Disneyland. I was living in Bakersfield, California, which is about 3 hours away from Disneyland. I remember being there, must have been around 65. Remember going on the flying saucers with my dad. He was too heavy for the flying saucer to lift off. So one of my first memories of Disneyland was sitting grounded in a unmoving flying saucer. And my brother David was 3 years older than me and had Crohn's disease, so he was sick a lot. So we would go to Disneyland once a year. So it was a huge event. We would save up all year. My parents were school teachers, so they would sort of scrimp and save. And we'd also have to wait for a day my brother was feeling well. So Disneyland represented everything Disneyland means to everyone, plus a day where my family was healthy and whole. And so these were the most magical days. And I became a collector of stuff because my dad was a book collector. We'd go on a treasure hunt every weekend to Goodwill, Salvation Army, and there were 2 other thrift stores. So 4 thrift stores we would rummage through every weekend. My dad would grab books. When I was young, I would get toys and games. I had more toys and games than any of my friends. They were all secondhand, but nobody cared. Mm-hmm. And then when I got interested in music, I would buy soundtrack albums and cast albums with my brother, and they were like a nickel each. So I got thousands of them growing up. So I was always a collector of stuff from Goodwill, basically, and never thought you could collect a piece of Disneyland. That was not a concept anyone had. Mm-hmm. And I did keep my ticket books after every trip, which always had like 2 A tickets left. And I would think, oh, well, this justifies another trip because look at all the savings we'll have. And so I also collected the map of the souvenir map, which we would put up on our wall. And for a year before our trip, it was like a military operation. We would argue how we were going to use our limited number of e-tickets, what paths we were going to take to get to them. And it occupied our mind for a whole year of imagining our trip to Disneyland before we ever got there.
How do you feel about those paper maps going away these days? Because they keep encouraging people to use the app now.
Okay, something you need to know about me. Even though love nostalgia, I love change.
Yeah.
And so why would you keep a piece of paper map that's going to 99% of the people are going to throw them out?
Yeah.
They waste, it's not good for trees, and we're all on our phones. So I don't use those maps anymore.
Yeah. Do you collect them at all?
Interestingly, I never collected them.
Okay.
I had no affinity towards them for some weird reason, even though they're cool. I just never got into the paper you get at the front gate.
Okay.
I would buy the ticket booth, but I was never interested in what was given away at the ticket booth. The thing with collectors is it's so random what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And what you collect makes sense, and what everyone else collects is idiotic.
Yes.
Like pins. I am not a pin trader. What's wrong with these people? Why do they want them?
Sure.
But I am someone who collects trash cans, so there's no logic. And the pins I do have are the pin set of the trash cans, so there's no logic.
If there was a booth that they sold the pins from, you would have the booth.
Exactly. And I like signage.
Great.
So, and then my brother passed away 25 years ago, and I felt very lost. And for some reason, I just ended up at Disneyland by myself and walking down Main Street and seeing the lights and hearing the sounds of the Jungle Cruise and the organ in the treehouse and feeling the lacquered handrails in Splash Mountain or smelling the water in Pirates of the Caribbean or tasting the Dole Whip. All these sensations brought back all these memories of my brother. And shortly after I heard there was an auction of Disney collectibles, including attraction posters. And I was always in love with the attraction posters. So I got the Autopia, which I guess would be the first thing I would say was my first collectible. Mm-hmm. And then I got all the attraction posters, except for Casa de Frito. I was never able to get that one. And I then just started buying ride vehicles and close to 1,000 pieces. And they were in my house, they were in my office, and a lot of self-storage units along the freeway.
So obviously the way that you get these things, sometimes through auctions, sometimes through phone calls. I'm curious, what's like the weirdest, shadiest story?
The weirdest, well, there's two.
Okay.
One is I get a phone call because I became known as the guy who buys the stuff. The guy's like, I've got 6 It's a Small World figures. It was almost like a hostage situation. And I met him in a parking lot at a deserted, at night, Fry's Electronics. And he rolls up the back of a U-Haul, and there they are. And so that was definitely hostage situation time. And the weirdest one was the plaque outside of Tomorrowland, the dedication plaque. I had it, and I'm friends with Tony Baxter, and he, the great legendary Imagineer, who came to my office about a week after I acquired it, and he goes, "Oh, someone stole that out of my office."
No.
So I called the guy and go, "I don't even want to hear this story. I'm giving it back to you. Make sure it ends up where it's supposed to be."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that was shady.
That's the shadiest.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Tony.
Yeah. Well, I got it back.
That's crazy. I am curious now that everybody, it was very public that you sold your collection. Are you still getting those phone calls every once in a while?
No, yes. People, very rarely does anyone call me with the stuff I actually collect. Mm-hmm. So, like, I hate Mickey Mouse. I mean, I don't hate him, but he's not like my thing.
I never even thought of that at the collection. I didn't see too much Mickey. Yeah.
No, it's like, no. I love the floral thing of him in the front of the park.
If you could buy it, you would have.
Yes, or I was thinking of designing my own, but I probably would have replaced Mickey with something.
Yeah.
But I'm just not a Mickey Mouse guy.
Okay.
And there's so much Mickey Mouse stuff out there. And it's usually the story is, oh, my aunt had this, and they think it's valuable, but it's not really. And then I have to tell them, I don't want to break their heart. So I just say I don't collect Mickey.
Gotcha.
But no, I have not been flooded with offers.
Now, I'm curious, has Disney ever contacted you saying, hey, where'd you get this?
No, but they did, after I became well known for collecting it, hired a person whose job was to log what they have. Not that I was taking it, but obviously people have taken stuff over the years. And mainly, they used to be much looser about letting stuff out.
Yeah.
And I think I and other people kind of put a spotlight on, no, this stuff's cool and valuable, and you should probably keep track of it.
And keep a lot of it, I would say. Did Archives ever want to buy anything from you?
Yeah, they were at the auction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting? This company owned it, and somehow they misplace it.
Yeah, but you think of Disney Archives. It's theme parks. It's animation.
Yeah.
It's movies. It's an endless amount of stuff.
Yeah.
And for years, nobody cared. It's like you hear all the stories of cells that were thrown out in dumpsters and people diving in and getting them. But I'm lucky. I was just in the market at the time where stuff was, I mean, most of it came from sales and auctions and early auctions. So I got in before the prices got crazy.
Yeah. Now, it's been a bit over a month now since the auction. I am curious, how are you feeling? Is there anything you're regretting selling?
Oh, no.
No.
Not at all. Keep in mind, everything had been in storage for about 5 years.
Yeah.
So I was so happy to see it put on exhibit because it had never been all out at the same time.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of it restored so it looked better than it ever did.
Yeah.
And then it's like, do you regret not still being in junior high?
I see, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you liked it maybe, but it's over.
Yeah.
And I collected. I certainly had the A triple plus going away party.
Yeah.
And now I'm done.
Was the party your idea, the exhibit?
Yes, it was a condition of doing the auction.
Oh, wow.
It was like I cared far more about the exhibit than I did about the auction.
And I know that because you were you were there a lot.
I was basically the mayor of that exhibit. It's like, when am I ever? These are my people.
Yeah.
We're gonna. People are crying looking at this stuff. Everyone had a story to share.
Yeah.
I loved showing this stuff, and the whole thing was done with my son Nicky. So it had this added layer of my son, who grew up with the tiki bird in his bedroom, is now the man doing the exhibit and the promotion of the tiki bird exhibit.
That's awesome.
So it really felt like a story needs an ending.
Yeah.
This was the perfect ending.
Yeah. Now, I know there were stories, like you said, the tiki bird was in your son's room, the sea serpent was by your pool. Was that stuff all in storage at that point, or was
Yes.
that okay?
That was 3 houses ago.
Okay.
So I mean, for almost now 5 years ago, I had a daughter. Mm-hmm. I have a little girl, and I moved out of the house to get a different house that would be her home. And it didn't have any Disney collectibles in it. She doesn't even care about them. She likes Minions. So I mean, she's a bit of a traitor. And she's also got special needs. She has a really rare genetic condition called Coffin-Siris syndrome. And my life is now about experiences with her.
Yeah.
I'm an old dad. So going to Small World almost every week with her is a bigger deal than owning stuff from Small World.
That's so interesting. I love, like, there was obviously this transition moment in your life, and I love that, like, you're so happy with how everything went, because I was genuinely curious. I mean, that was a huge part of your life, and you sold it all in, or a lot of it in one day.
Well, the question people don't ask me, what else do I collect?
That's on my list. That's on my list.
Keep in mind, I still have 1,000 board games from the 50s and 60s. I have advertising icons, statues of Ronald McDonald and Pioneer Pete and
James Bond.
Oh, that's another collection.
Yeah.
I'm a massive. I have James Bond toys and I have movie posters. I have the 6-sheet, which is a rather large size poster of every James Bond movie through Roger Moore. And then post Roger Moore, I didn't care anymore. But I collect so much. I collect cereal boxes from the past. I collect food containers. I have so much stuff, all of which I'm planning to get rid of.
Is that all in storage too?
Everything's in storage.
Wow.
I have my favorite Disney thing is Ferdinand the Bull.
Oh, yes.
Tons of merchandise came out for him.
Wow.
But here's a cathartic moment. I just deleted, I have about 30 daily searches on eBay of things I collect. I got rid of all of them.
Wow.
Yep. I only collect one thing now, which is sheet music for movies.
Okay.
That's because there's a practical application of it. And I also held on to all my, like, I have a lot of original Mary Blairs. Yeah. But that's art. So that's up in the house.
Sure.
But collecting, it's just great chapters. Life should have lots of chapters.
Yeah.
And now, like my career, I'm so blessed. I've been an agent for film and Broadway composers for over 3 decades, and I still do it and love it.
Yeah.
And my first client, Danny Elfman, we're still together after all these years. But even that has morphed into the thing I was busy with today is next week we're doing Nightmare Before Christmas at the Hollywood Bowl again.
Yeah.
And that show, I'm directing these projections that are going onto the shell of the bowl. But I directed A Little Mermaid with Sarah Bareilles and Rebel Wilson. It was Ursula. And I did A Beauty and the Beast with Zooey Deschanel, and Taye Diggs was Gaston. Who would know in my 50s I would start a completely new additional career as a director?
What I loved about the Nightmare thing, you were having that meeting and I could overhear it when I was waiting. And this is year 4 for you?
It's year 3.
Okay, year 3. And you guys are, it sounds like you're producing a new show.
Yes, because the projections are new and we want to shake things up. Actually, the second time we did it, the first time we did it, my mind was exploding how exciting it was.
I was there that year. Yeah.
And the second year, it felt like I was coming to work.
Okay.
We were doing the same show. It's like, hey, it's been a year. Nice seeing you. And then this time, I would have been so uninterested if we weren't adding all these new elements.
Yeah.
I never want to compare myself to Walt, but I understand Walt, why he kept reinventing.
Yeah.
He could have just made Mickey Mouse cartoons his entire life.
Yeah.
But he was just bored.
Yeah. Back to your exhibit for a second. I'm curious, did you expect lines around the building?
No. I had zero. I never even bothered to have an expectation. It was like, I'm just going to open the door. And it was important to me that it was free.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it was like, I had no idea.
It was massively successful.
Massive. We had over 50,000 people come, and there were lines around the block. And I also liked that it was for less than a month, and then it ended. So everyone who went will have this weird... Do you remember a few years ago, there was that weird Sports Authority building that had the line around the block where you saw all this stuff, and you got your photo taken by the stretch room paintings? And now it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So it becomes a collective memory of everyone. Now, the one thing, I was very lucky. I was able to give a private tour of it to Bob Iger.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of the tour, I said, the one thing, I'm going to just say it out loud because wishes sometimes come true if you say them out loud.
God bless you for saying it.
I said, boy, I think this shows there'd be a market for doing this you guys would put on a far better one than I can.
Yep.
And if this was a permanent thing, not in Disneyland, because that's too...
In Orlando.
Oh, I'm thinking it should be downtown Disney or by the Anaheim Convention Center.
Okay.
When you go to Disneyland, you can look at the past.
Yeah.
And they would do a killer job. So that's sort of my wish. And there should be one in Orlando.
I think Disney Springs or somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I just didn't grow up going to Disney World. I only went later in life. So I don't have nostalgia for Disney World.
Yeah.
You know, when people talk about the original Journey Through Imagination, it's like, okay, I'll take your word for it. But I wasn't there.
Yeah. So that's great. I am curious. So you had so much stuff when you started opening these warehouses. Did you know what you had, or did you get some nice surprises along the way?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was especially, like, ride vehicles are big. I remember those.
Sure.
But I own so many original conceptual art pieces.
Yeah.
That there's a land they were going to build called Anything Can Happen Land, which is mainly a playground. I didn't remember owning any of that.
Yeah.
It was like kind of wonderful.
I love that. So are there what items did you keep? Mostly artwork?
I kept nothing.
Wow.
If it's from Disneyland, I did not keep it.
That's incredible.
You know why? I'm obsessive. So if I collected
You want all-
one thing,
yeah.
if I held on to one thing, it would be like the end of the movie The Jerk.
Yeah.
I don't need anything except for this Autopia poster
Yeah.
and this tiki bird. And I didn't want...
Well, you're a completionist because
Yes.
when you said it, you got Autopia poster first and you wanted to complete that set. Like, I'm
Yes.
like, that's why I'm not a pin collector, honestly. But, I mean, frankly,
It's a
I don't
bottomless pit.
care about them all that much. But if I did, I would want every one. And it's
Yes.
impossible to have
Yes.
every pin. So
I also have a weird distinction between things that were meant to be collected and things that are collected. In other words, they didn't make the Candy Palace sign to be collected.
Yeah.
But they made the pins to be collected. So
Yeah.
even though I have a few of and they're beautiful, stuff they made to commemorate anniversaries of like the Tiki Room.
Yeah.
Great pieces, but I always felt they're...
Yeah, everybody, it's kind of like comic books these days. They're not really worth as much as people think
Right.
because comic books were worth something when nobody was collecting them.
Yes,
and now everybody
knows
does.
to collect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you make a polyurethane bag for what you own, you're now in a market.
Yeah. No, were you shocked at the prices these things went
Oh,
for?
yeah, but here's the thing. I never once thought about the auction prior to the auction.
Yeah.
Because to me, it was the exhibit, and it butted right. And then the last night of the exhibit was Alan Menken flew out for a charity concert. So to me, the experience ended then.
Yeah.
Then the sequel tangential thing was the auction, and I never bothered even. There were estimated prices. I never even added up how much they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then I was actually uncomfortable sitting there watching the numbers.
Yeah.
So I would go up and dance during it.
Wow.
And I would rather be dancing while they're bidding on a stretch room painting than staring at the number of how much it's going for.
Yeah.
So, and it's a bit of guilt.
Sure.
This was not meant to be an investment. So there was a little bit of, oh, now it's turned into money.
Yeah.
And I had a very difficult time. There was a lot of press about how much money it made.
Yeah.
And at first I would apologize to people. I go, well, you got to keep in mind, there's still all these buyer's fees that have to come out and seller's fees and taxes. And then I was just boring people with my financial, like, don't think I have as much money as you think I have.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not me. I don't like apologizing for stuff, nor if it's about money. So I just sort of go, wow, wasn't that cool?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of done with the money conversation.
Because that's not what you got
Yes.
it for.
Yes.
Like, you didn't buy any of that
No.
thinking it's going to be worth more in 20 years.
No, the person I'm tracking down is my old business manager, who every year would call me and say, you got to stop buying this. Invest in something that's going to pay off.
Gotcha.
And so I can't wait to tell them.
It paid off.
But it was never bought for that purpose.
Sure.
And what it means for me is it means my special needs daughter now has a trust fund that will take care of her for the rest of her life. It means my son who's getting married, I can help him with the down payment on their house. And it means I can buy some fun stuff. But beyond that, it goes to charity.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so that you mentioned the charities, the Coffin Cyrus Syndrome Foundation.
and which is my daughter's. There's only 200 documented cases of her condition worldwide. Wow. But the week after the exhibit, I hosted 85 kids and their families with it at Disneyland.
That's amazing.
So there are many more people who have it. It just hasn't been diagnosed. But I'd much rather give money to charity.
Yeah.
Take care of the stuff I want to take care of, but then let this stuff bring joy to other people in other forms.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, we had a raffle because they never found my Tomorrowland Coke machine.
Okay.
Until the exhibit started.
Okay. And
they finally found it in one of the storage units. So we cleaned it up, and it was too late to auction off. So we did a raffle.
Oh, okay.
And 100% of the proceeds went to those two charities. And at the exhibit, because my daughter's special needs, lots of people came up to me talking about their conditions or their families or their friends' conditions. And one of them was this incredible woman and her teenage son. And the teenage son, Kobe, is autistic. And they go to Disneyland every week. It's a huge part of their life. And then the exhibit became a very big part of Kobe's life. And I befriended him. And when it was time to raffle the stuff off, I asked for volunteers, and he volunteered to be one of the raffles ticket seller.
Yeah.
Which is a lot for a kid it's an overwhelming environment, going up to strangers and asking them to do it. And he broke through every barrier and enjoyed doing it. We then had the raffle. A kid with autism won it.
Wow.
And it was just delivered.
I got chills. I just got chills. That's
it's
crazy.
that Disney magic.
Yeah.
And we just had it delivered yesterday to the family in San Diego.
That's incredible.
And I saw a photo of the family with my old Coke vending machine from Tomorrowland. And it was like, oh, it's got another home.
Yeah.
It's like, it made me so happy. I used to love it. It used to be outside by the swimming pool. Then it went in storage to the degree no one could find it.
Yeah.
And now it's not a thing in storage.
Yeah.
And with a family who got a $5 raffle ticket has it.
Yeah.
And they're going to get a blast out of it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I will do down the road is track down buyers and ask to visit some of the stuff. Because I want to see what new life do these things have?
Yeah. I do want to mention the Chime Institute as well.
Yes.
We didn't name
Yes,
that
so
charity.
Chime Institute is where my daughter goes to school.
Okay.
And she's in a class of 4 atypically developing kids, and there are 12 typically developing. And it's such a great program for 2 reasons. The kids with developmental delays see the other kids and just want to copy. And it really, my daughter's growth has accelerated so much being at this school. And then for the typically developing kids, when I grew up, special ed kids were way down the...
Yep.
And you didn't deal with them. They were like, might as well have been boo. And I mean...
they were segregated.
It was totally segregated.
Yeah.
And I made fun of them.
Yeah.
And it was just like the others. I don't know what they are. They're just freaky kids I don't want to deal with. And now 12 kids get to know my daughter, totally love and accept her. So these kids are going to grow up so much differently than I grew up, and their attitude towards kids with differences is going to be so different.
Yeah.
So it's a great school, but because it's a school, it's wildly underfunded. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much looking forward to writing checks to them.
That's incredible. I want to ask you, did you have by any chance, any Honey, I Shrunk the Kids stuff?
No, because... it was from Disney World, and then by the time it got to Disneyland, it wasn't in my main collecting zone. Plus, to be honest, I don't know, besides signage, I don't know what else there would have been.
For Disneyland, just signage. It was Florida that had the playground, the movie set playground.
Yes.
I'm obsessed with that movie, so I had to ask if you had... I was looking around, and I was like, I don't think there's any...
There was nothing from that.
Oh, bummer. I do want to mention...
But the thing that... Are you saying Honey, I Shrunk the Kids you're obsessed
anything.
with?
I'm
or
the
Shrunk
franchise. The franchise in general.
Even the direct-to-video...
I mean, I don't love it, but it's part of the franchise, so I accept it.
You have to accept it?
Yes. If it's Rick Moranis, I'm pretty happy.
Gotcha.
That's what that comes down to. I am a little curious. So you obviously had the means to have this large collection. Do you think your collection of Disney stuff or anything that you collect is crazy? Or do you think if people had the means, there would be so many more people with that stuff?
Here's the thing. People have such wide ranges of money.
Yeah.
Like, there are people with private jets. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to be in the income bracket to own a private jet.
Sure.
But there's an entire market of people who own private jets. I don't think someone who owns a private jet is crazy, and I'm not jealous of them. Mm-hmm. Or someone who owns a yacht. I'm never going to be in a bracket to own a yacht.
Sure.
I can own a canoe from Disneyland. I can own a keelboat. And because I grew up with no money, and most of my stuff was from secondhand from Goodwill, my relationship to stuff doesn't have much to do with the money.
Yeah.
as I started having a life where I had more money, I just bought more stuff, but I was already buying stuff.
Yeah.
And I made more money than my dad when I was 25 years old. He was a school teacher, so there's a ceiling of how much he was ever going to make. Mm-hmm. So I knew a great guy could support a family making the amount of money I was making at 25. Mm-hmm. So everything I ever made after that felt like silly play money.
Sure.
Because I knew you could live. So I never struggled anymore. I knew I could take care of myself. And now I have all this extra money. And look, there is a people mover.
Yeah.
Why don't I buy that? I've seen it all. I've seen going through the couch looking for loose change so I can have dinner that night.
Yeah.
And now I'm finally a member of Club 33.
Yeah.
So, and I have yet to go through their couches to look for loose change. But I'm blessed. I've had so many experiences, especially around things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in cocaine, so my money didn't go there.
Yeah.
My money went towards things that were so tied to my joy and Punchline I didn't even know was an investment. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get back the money if I was a cokehead, but being a Disney head, I was able to get the money back and more so.
It just seems like your mission in life is to have fun every day.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
And help other people.
Yeah.
Because
both of which you did.
But it's like I just rewatched Mary Poppins, my first movie ever.
Are you excited about the sequel?
I've seen the sequel because my client Marc Shaiman wrote the songs.
Of course, yes, of course.
And I can't say anything. It's terrific.
Okay.
I can't say anything though.
I'm excited about it.
If you love the trailer,
I do.
You'll love the movie.
Here's the thing. Don't hate me. I'm not the biggest Mary Poppins fan.
Well, it's interesting. I just watched it with a friend's 11-year-old daughter who had never seen it. And it's like, you remember the highlights.
Sure.
But you don't remember, oh, right, they sing Sister Suffragette and 3 versions of The Life I Lead.
It's long.
And Fiduciary Bank and my 11-year-old friend, she was like, those birds are fake. And then she said, halfway through Supercalifragilistic, she goes, does this movie have a plot? Is there a villain? Is something going to happen?
Yeah.
But it's a great movie. Mm-hmm. And certainly for me, every lesson of how I live my life, I think, was informed by that movie.
Sure.
And what the Sherman Brothers wrote about. Because it's like, in every job that must be done, there's an element of fun. So it didn't say go have fun. Mm-hmm. It acknowledged there was a job. And so I love that there's both things. There's work to be done and you can have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And I love that, the important thing is to feed the birds. That's where your value comes from. And you can jump into chalk paintings and have a jolly holiday. Mm-hmm. These flights of fantasy were encouraged, but it's all grounded in kind of decency. And I love stories that are whimsical, but grounded in the idea of you still have to work, you still have to care about other people. It's not just a self-indulgent boondoggle.
Mm-hmm. At the collection, you had these clips from Finding Craftland,
yes,
a documentary that was made. Can people find that anywhere? Okay.
Because it was made for film festivals.
I was hoping you had the DVD in the shop, and you didn't. And I was like, this is such a great film.
Actually, most of the monitors were original stuff made for the exhibit that showed some clips from Finding Craftland. And all of the monitor stuff is on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
If you go Finding Craftland, not Finding Craftland. If you go, that's from Disneyland.
Okay.
You'll find it. There's
Gotcha.
YouTube clips of everything.
Great. And before we go, I know you're extremely busy, so I am curious, with these other collections you have, you say you're going to get rid of everything. Do you plan on doing an exhibit like you did?
Yep.
Awesome.
I don't know what it means yet.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm thinking
So you've got years of exhibits and auctions.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I'm toying with an exhibit that would maybe not just be my collection, but other people's collections, called That's From My Childhood.
Oh.
And someone who loves Star Wars brings in their Star Wars stuff. And the person who loves G.I. Joe and Hot Wheels and Easy Bake Ovens and You know,
that's awesome.
There's so much, and I just named stuff from my age, but you know, people's love of Strawberry Shortcake and Transformers and He-Man. And it's like looking back at your childhood. And what I loved about the exhibit was it was such a celebration of that stuff. And you turn a corner and you go, oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah, it was so much. Yeah, that you must have seen the Netflix series, the toys.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, that was really, really well done. I also want to mention real quickly, you had mentioned it, but you represent some amazing Disney talent, including Danny Elfman, Alan Menken, Dick Sherman, John Debney, who I just had on the show, Marc Shaiman. It's incredible as well. You're such a Disney fan.
Well, and then I collect composers.
Yeah,
I remember the first time Alan Menken came to my house. He was like, am I going to end up in a lucite case? But the reason I represent these people, I never went to business school. I have no formal education. I'm not from LA. Zero nepotism and me coming into the industry. I just a fan.
Yeah.
So when I met Danny Elfman, I wasn't talking to him about his band Oingo Boingo, other than I could hear filmatic elements. But we just went on long conversations about Bernard Herrmann and our shared love of him. And Alan Menken I knew for years before I represented him. And every time he'd win an Oscar, I had a dog named Schmenken, named after Ashman and Menken.
That's amazing.
And I would send a paw print of Schmenken with a congratulatory note.
That's great.
And so the people I represent know I'm a fan. And I can use my enthusiasm towards them in selling them to other people or making great deals or finding the right project. I mean, Marc Shaiman got Mary Poppins Returns. He knew the director, but he wasn't going to be the guy necessarily doing the movie. And I remembered Marc Shaiman on Facebook posted a year before this, him putting on the vinyl album of Mary Poppins and just watching the glow on Marc Shaiman's face as the tremolo of strings started. And I go, why don't you send that YouTube, the video, to the director of the movie. Let him know you're not just saying you love Mary Poppins, but it's the foundation of your entire life. So that's what I do for a living, is make suggestions like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm this blessed guy who loves movies and music and gets to make a living out of it. I love now celebrating Disney movies, and I get to do them as these crazy overproduced concerts.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what the next chapter of all of it is.
Well, thank you so much for everything, especially the That's from Disneyland exhibit. That was such a treat for Disneyland fans and just Disney fans in general.
Where are you from?
Originally from Boston, but I've lived in Burbank for 12 years now, 11 years now. So,
Had you ever been to the Sports Authority?
No.
Neither had I.
No.
That's the closest I've ever come to a sporting goods store.
That's great. So thank you so much for the time.
Thing. Thanks.
I hope you folks enjoyed that interview. Thanks again to Richard Kraft for coming on the show. Now, folks, if you're enjoying Disney Coast to Coast, don't forget to leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on iTunes. It helps other Disney fans find the show more easily. In fact, if you have a favorite episode of Disney Coast to Coast, share it on social media and be sure to tag Disney Coast to Coast. You can find all of our social media links over at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for watching Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePaoli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.